Everybody, we are here. It's Friday. Before I go out to bowling and enjoy my evening, I'm going to have a nice, intimate conversation here because something I was talking to a friend of mine is just these conversations among all the other conversations that I have in my life are so therapeutic and so important to me because it keeps me upbeat. It keeps me, keeps me going essentially because I get to have important conversations no matter what it is. If something's going on, I have friends that vote each way. I have friends with all different ethnic groups and different genders and so on. So like I can have these uncomfortable conversations no matter what they are, and a lot of them I can bring to you because they also want to open up and try to help people, and so I think it's very important to constantly not only just educate yourself but just keep yourself amongst different variations of people because they'll keep you more open-minded and you won't be as closed-minded as a lot of people are these days where just they see what they want to see. And another thing is that there's so many people out here that are doing great things and they're doing it in their own ways, and I always like to have them on because just because it's not my method or someone else's method, it doesn't mean it's not effective or it doesn't work for me or for anyone. And our next guest is somebody who she's found her own method of how to benefit herself and many other people. And so I just wanted to have her on to share her story. So would you like to tell us your name and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Yvonne. I started a company with my partner. It's called LimitlessYou because we believe that everybody is limitless. And sometimes people feel stuck. Sometimes people feel limited. Sometimes people feel sad. If you are feeling sad, limited, depressed, anxious, all of that, I just want you to know it's not your fault. What we've discovered, because we're hypnotherapists and we study neuroscience and quantum physics, is that it's our subconscious mind trying to protect us from something it perceives as worse. So even though sometimes things don't feel good, your subconscious mind thinks there's something worse. But when we get to the root of it, we see quite often that thing is just a story we had to make up when we were young to make sense of the crazy world that we lived in, or sometimes the not so crazy world. So that's why I'm here to help anybody, work through anything. We can talk through some things here today with Timothy and go on a little subconscious safari and free you from whatever's holding you back in life.
Yeah, well, and as a lot of the audience knows now, is I've had a history of mental health, but lately I tried to, within the last 2 months here, I tried to quit my antidepressants, and I made it 42 days, but it really took a lot out of me. I started breaking down, and I started struggling immensely because of all the negative thoughts and the worrying and the stressing and some of it was what you're saying and some of it was also just I think even relapsing from the medication itself because I had it in my system for years and years. But I there are times where I know exactly what you're saying where your subconscious kicks in and it starts telling you, don't do this, and a part of you knows that that's silly, but a lot of times we don't dig deep enough to try to figure out if it's right or wrong. It's just sometimes the feeling, like the tonality of it, throws you off and it scares you away. So you're like, nah, I don't want to. And then there are years later that you attempt it. Maybe it's the right time or whatever, and you do it, and you're like, why didn't I do this all along? This wasn't that scary.
Yeah. Our subconscious mind actually doesn't care if we're happy or sad. Like, its job is to keep you and everybody that's listening alive. That's all it cares about. So if you are alive, even if you're in a bad situation, it's like, nope, don't change anything because you're alive. So it does all it can. It's like the most risk-averse part of your being. So it's really interesting once you start to learn more about your subconscious mind and how it works. And then, learning how to make your mind work for you versus you work for your mind. It's a powerful tool that everybody should spend as much time as they can learning about, whether it's your profession or not. There's so many great resources out there these days. And if Timothy, I'd love to have you on our podcast. It's called How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs.
Sure.
But that's all we do is we have people on that are talking about learning more about human beings. Like I always say, we've not cloned a human being, but we've built a rocket ship.
Right.
So human beings by default are more complicated than a rocket ship. But I don't know about you, Timothy. I didn't get a class for human being 101 or 201 or 301 from school nor my parents.
No.
Right? So most of our subconscious mind was developed by the time we were 10, and 95% of it was developed by the time we're 35. And everything's running based upon programs coded in there that we're not in control of. And so it's so very important for us to take back control of our own minds. And sometimes that just takes a little bit of help or a little bit of discussion like we're doing here today, which I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think for me, and I saw someone say this online recently, but I want to steal it, is just because for me, I also went through a lot of abuse as a kid. And there's a part of me that really started to kind of understand that and realize what I had gone through. I didn't realize until like in my 20s. I'm going to be 36 and was it next week now or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks from now?
Oh, happy early birthday.
Well, thank you. But I feel like now in my 30s, I'm now trying to like be the adult that I've always wanted to be. I'm trying to be the person and the advocate and all that. But there was this like middle area where I think I just went numb for a long time, and I didn't really even care what happened to me. And then once I realized what had happened to me, that was when the suicidal ideations kicked in and depression and all that. And then it just became so overwhelming. So then I numbed that with medication, and then got through my 20s, and life still kept happening. And now I'm here in my 30s, and I'm like, oh, okay, now let's fix all this. All right. And again, I'm doing a good job. I've made it very far, and I've, huge differences. But it's trying to tap into your brain later. And again, I know it's not late, but it's still it's something that it's a bunch of hurdles that I've really had to jump over here, especially of late. Just trying to, I do feel like I'm close to kind of unlocking more and more of myself, but I know I'm also sometimes I tend to chase my tail.
Yeah, well, congratulations for all the work you've done and the progress you've made. One of the easy things to remember, and we can definitely talk more after this, but Einstein's E equals MC squared, right? That's easy to remember. Everybody knows that, right?
Right.
I've changed it a little bit. So it's E equals the energy you want in your being, in your life. In order to get that, Timothy, it's your mindful thinking, but not just ruminating in your thoughts. Mindful thinking raised to the power of compassion and curiosity.
Okay.
Why I say that, Timothy, is because you, like you said, you're trying to be the best adult.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what you also get to be? You get to be the best parent and the best caretaker of your inner child. So you have compassion, and that little, I call it your mini me, is still inside of you.
Yeah.
Right? You have to basically raise your subconscious mind to your adult conscious awareness.
Sure.
And so you need to have compassion for yourself and know it's not your fault. Right? All those hurdles you've had to go over, those feelings that keep showing up, just know that they're information, that something still wants to heal inside of you.
Sure.
And rather than trying to numb it out, get curious. So first, compassion, right? Inside every adult is a mini me. So whether you're having difficulty with yourself or in a relationship, know that it's never about the person at work or at home in your relationship. It's always about the relationship you have with yourself. And the same is true for them. So if you can see everybody like as their child self, that you can have compassion for others and yourself, and then get curious. So don't numb out, don't distract, don't binge watch Netflix or drink a bunch of wine like I used to, right? Bring those emotions in closer and be like, wow, okay, this is not about the other person, so I'm going to stop judging. to me, if we can get rid of fear and judgment of self and others, we can bring heaven here on earth today.
Yeah.
So anytime you have a fear, and it's not like literally like somebody's holding a gun to your head or there's a tiger about ready to pounce, right? Like not true death, life, death experience. Like anytime you have fear or judgment of yourself or others, pause and get curious. First, compassion, right? We're all just little kids trying to run through life in these adult bodies that nobody taught us how to operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they get really curious, like, oh, why am I feeling this? Now, with people in my community and my clients, they have a little bit better understanding. They're ahead of the game because I use hypnosis and hypnotherapy to help them get to the root cause. But you can do it with guided and deep guided meditation and just being still and thinking about it. You can get still to a lot on your own. Always get some help if you can. If you can't, don't give up. Just get curious. Like, oh, why am I feeling this? And if you can say, okay, my answer can't be because of anything outside of me. It can't be because of the persons in front of me, the environment, my house. Like, what is causing the fear and the judgment? And if you can just close your eyes and think back to a time where you felt that way, you'll start to get insight into the programming that's running in your mind. And then you can look at it closer and you can see whether it's true or not for you today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I told you even before we started is I've been, I've always, part of the reason why I started this is just looking at the younger version of me. And I'm always protective of that because there's still a part of me that because I lost my childhood, there's still that kid in me and just very playful and loving and affectionate and innocent even. And, but I protect it. Like a lot of people don't get to see that goofy side of me as much as I would like because I saw what happened to me as a kid being, bullied and molested and different things. All that stuff happened. And, it's like, oh, okay, so you can't let this out to just anybody because they take advantage of it. Regardless if I'm, now an adult and can handle myself and protect myself, it's just, I try not to be, but you become very guarded because people can be very nasty and have done bad things. So, but yeah, I've always been very aware of that little, like you said, mini me, because I try to protect it because I feel like that's almost the best part of me. It's the part that I never wanted to lose. And I'm happy that I haven't because, because I never wanted to just grow up to be just like an adult and then just be bitter and angry and envious of other people and whatnot.
Yeah. One of the things I'm going to share on one of my best friends, she is a social worker and marriage counselor. And when I was going through, so Timothy, I married somewhat late, according to my family, right? And where I grew up in a town of 2,300. I literally lived in town, Timothy, but across the street with cornfields and cows. I'm not even lying.
Okay.
Not now, but back then, right? And so people, maybe you went to college and then got married, but you did pretty fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it was. And so I chose a different path. And so then I'm like, oh, I got to get married. And then I got married and I got into the wrong relationship. And then that became an unsafe relationship. And then I got out of it, right? And then I thought, oh, well, then I got to rush into something else. And it was going back to you and I were talking about before. Most of everybody's suffering is this feeling like I'm not enough for some reason, right? The authentic me is not enough. And just like you're like, oh, maybe the authentic me is not enough because it might get bullied or somebody might not like it and I got to hide it. I got to protect it. One of my girlfriends, she told me the best thing when I was going through that time. She's like, you can't lose if you're your authentic self. If you don't let your authentic self live, if you don't let that mini me shine, you're guaranteed to lose. Well, she didn't add that. I added that part. But think about it this way. A lot of people go through life wearing these masks. Not their fault. Just it's what's been taught. If you're your authentic self, you get bullied. If you're your authentic self, you get made fun of. If you're your authentic self, you won't be accepted. All of these things, like, it's so interesting how the human mind works. It all goes back to almost like where we come from and our history. If we got kicked out, we're tribal people, Timothy. So if we got kicked out of the tribe back in the day, way back in the day, what would happen if you got kicked out of the tribe?
I don't know.
Imagine you're a caveman and you got kicked out of the tribe in the wilderness. There's no buildings. There's hunter-gatherer time.
Yeah, you're probably gonna starve. You're banished, and you probably
you die, right?
Yeah.
So our minds, like, we're just like if you look at the history of man, right? We're our minds as they are now is a very short period of time in the overall span. So our minds say, "Oh, don't get kicked out of the tribe. You're going to die." So you got to pretend to be something else that the tribe's going to accept, right?
Right.
But when you do that, that's where depression and anxiety and misery, because you become disconnected from who you are meant to be.
Sure. No.
And so do you understand? Like, you're losing by not allowing yourself to be you. If you be you authentically, no matter what, and some people don't like it, they're not your people.
Right. Well, I do.
You don't you don't want them.
Yeah. No, I do. Like, when I look around and I see, like, let's say social media, for instance, like, I see so many people trying to be like other people, and that never appealed to me. Like, I always wanted to try to be myself, but I think because when I was a kid, and just as a kid in general, I don't think being different is always a bad thing, it seems, because it's like, that's how you get picked on. That's how you get bullied, right? And then as you get older, it's like, oh, being different is actually kind of cool. Now, I also have a, visual impairment, so I have a disability, so something that automatically makes me different, whether I want to be or not. But I've learned to hone it and tap into it, and then learned how to use that with my actual personality and just be me. And again, like I said, I'm still unlocking it, but But I see so many people trying to be other people that it's like, oh God, it's like, I definitely don't want to go in that direction. And then as a person with a disability, we have to constantly look at alternative routes no matter what. So it's like I've always had to think differently, regardless if I even intended or wanted to. So I totally get what you're saying. And so, being, trying to be my authentic self, I'm getting there. And that's what it's not just like I'm totally denying myself or I don't want to. It's just, I think it's just slowly like de-thawing everything. Like, I'm just taking it all out and I'm just letting it, de-thaw, because I know I know I want to. It's just, I'm getting more and more comfortable with myself. I'm getting more comfortable with life. And I mean, the idea of even having a conversation with a person who I don't know, which I've done many, many times over now, but like, I would have never reached out to a person. I don't even know if I reached out to you, you reached out to me, but regardless, I would have never even entertained this, because like, oh God, someone will, someone new to talk to and they'll judge me. And like, it wouldn't even been an idea. So where I'm at is leaps and bounds of where I used to be. It's just still like, I'm not there yet, which is fine, whatever. But yeah, no, I'm
well,
yeah.
That's great, right? Because here's the thing. You're in your awareness. So embodiment takes time, right? To act on what you know to be true or what you want to be true takes practice, just like anything, right? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say most, there's so many people, Timothy, that are still asleep and they don't have that awareness. So you've like kind of stepped out of the matrix. You stepped out of the code, right? You're like, okay, I know I don't want to be ruled by the matrix. I just got to figure out how to navigate on my own path. And that takes practice.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. Like, you're never probably going to have it all figured out. Like, you don't ever want to stop growing, right?
Right.
Because then you become stagnant or you start dying. So we're all going to keep growing.
Well, I
hope.
Yeah. No, another thing is like, go back to the social media thing, is like I told you, like I do a lot of advocacy online, and I try to show my mental health journey and just everything I do throughout if there's something I feel like talking about, whatever. And I do a lot of just speakings and whatnot. And there's a lot of times I'll get feedback and I'll look at their channels and I'm like, this says nothing about what I was talking about. Like they're doing the most like generic thing, or they're just like if it's a woman, they're doing just like provocative, like sexual dances to like the hip hop music and whatever else. And I'm like, how did but they say thank you for this message and yada yada yada. And the more I look into it, it's like I think there's just a lot of people that they do these things. They don't really want to do them. It gets them some sort of, I don't know, notoriety, gives them some attention. Maybe it's not what they really deep down want, but I think deep down they want to come out of their shell. They want to speak openly about like the issues that I talk about, like mental health and, having a disability and all these different things. And they see someone doing it and they're like, oh, thank you. But it's just like they can't do it because there's just something in them that they're fighting and they're having these inner struggles with. And so like my point is like there's a lot of people that I would expect. There are people that will comment and write in and whatever, and will say, man, like, thank you. And then you look at what they promote and who they are, and you go, okay, that makes sense. But there's, I think, a good percent of the people that I hear back from are people that I would never expect just based on the content that they promote and that they post. And I think that's just, like I said, there's a lot of people, like you were saying, there's just a lot of people who really don't know how to be themselves. And they just do whatever they know, and what they know is YouTube and TikTok influencers, and they're just like, oh, okay, this dance is the thing everybody's doing, so I'm going to do the dance because somebody got 100,000 views on it, so I'm going to do the dance. It doesn't matter if I feel good about doing the dance. I'm just going to do it. And for me, it's like, I don't know, like I've really been cognizant of not only this, but also social media, where I just like, I don't put filters. I don't put any random music or anything. I just talk and I just give my point across, and I try to do my best to advocate and to help. And that's it. It may not draw or generate the most attention, but if I can help a couple people, great. That's the point. That's the goal. And I know that if I were to do some extra things and do some stupid dances and add a couple filters and stuff, I probably could reach more people. But it's like, that's not who I am. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah, you got to be you for sure. Before I changed, like, because I went through a pretty bad divorce, and I didn't ever even get on social media, right? Because I thought it's kind of depressing. I'm like, oh, I don't have a Facebook family. Right, because there's a lot of glass houses, and so it wasn't until I switched into this profession, right, from my business and IT consulting, that I started doing it. And it took me a while to like get comfortable even being real and putting a video out there and being like, oh my God, what if people are going to judge it, right? Mm-hmm. But it just takes practice for everybody to be their authentic self. And I think the other thing is support, right? So if you're thinking like, I don't know if I'm my authentic self or not, I don't know if I have challenges, we try and give as many free resources as possible. If people, Timothy, want to go to our website, there's a ton of free resources on our resources tab. Mm-hmm. One of them they could go directly to is unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz. And it's only 12 questions. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. But what you're going to find is it's basically asking you different things about how you show up in life or what bothers you, things like that. There's so many things that have been normalized that people aren't even aware that there is something better for them. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I didn't know, Timothy, that I could live my purpose. I thought it wasn't safe to live my purpose because my mom was like, you need to make money, and I think you should go into the business school, and I think this, and I think that. And I didn't know I'm dating myself, but there was no internet to search up, so you trusted your parents, right?
Sure.
And I went into a profession, and then I didn't know better. I didn't know you could have a deeply connected, open and honest communication relationship with your partner, even when things were difficult. I didn't know that it was never necessary to get into fight or flight, like have a big fight or just pull up and like storm off, right? Like people don't know what they don't know. And so again, I think if we can remove judgment, like all those people, they're just doing the best they can. All of our parents, they just did the best they can. When we can take out judgment, then we can come closer and help each other. Like, I used to be the queen of judgment, right? But one of the things that I learned is, like, when I judged somebody else, or when I tried to prove my point, I tried to be right. Like, my whole goal was really to be accepted and connected and help them see what I saw. Mm-hmm. But when I judged them, or I tried to push my thoughts on them, I pushed them away. So the very opposite of what I wanted to do. Right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what I say. If we can let go of all fear and judgment, even if people have room to grow, fine, they have room to grow. We go back to R equals MC squared. They're just little kids inside an adult body. Let's be compassionate. Let's get curious. Why might they be doing what they're doing? And then that's when we're going to be able to think about, how might we help each other? Right? How might we come closer and realize we're all the same inside? Right. We're all pure light and love energy. We just walk around in different packages.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I've never. That's why, I mean, we all have moments of, judgment and all that, but for the most part, I really, there's someone going through something. It's like, whether it's something that is a little off-putting or whatever, I look at it and I go, I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what it is that's happening right now. I try to give people, a chance, because I as much as, the old me would be like, hey, you write everybody off just because everyone has hurt you, or that's what I perceived it to be. But now I'm more like, when I look at everybody, it's like, yeah, like I don't understand people who judge, let's say, a homeless person, like, because I feel like one of the things I learned, the main thing I learned, or one of the main things I learned while trying to quit my meds, was how easy it is to become an addict, a drug addict like that, because of this medication is so addictive. Now, I've never done a drug in my life. I've never smoked a cigarette, nothing. And the only thing I've ever taken is the stuff that's prescribed to me. And I didn't realize how addictive these medications are. And maybe they're not addictive in the same way that cocaine is addictive, or Oxycontin even. But they're addictive nonetheless, and you find yourself doing really silly things to try to obtain these medications, because you're like, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. And and I say that because, again, never doing drugs, and never thought I would even understand someone in that mindset. But I do now, and I look at everything else the same way. It's like, yeah, I hope I never understand what it's like to be homeless. But I also know how easy it is to become a drug addict almost. I know how easy it is to have a disability. Like, we all look at these, I think we look at certain issues like that where we go, oh, well, that's so far-fetched. That couldn't happen to me because that's got to be some freak accident or this and that. And it's like, no, man, you can easily become any of those three things. It's not hard to make a couple bad payments and you have no family or friends, and now you're on the street. Or you get hooked on drugs because you had an injury, or you get into a car accident. Now you have a disability. Like, these things can easily happen. So it's like, I don't know what someone's going through on a daily basis. I don't know. I may bump into somebody tomorrow that's having the worst day of their life. And you just have to, and again, there's things to excuse and not, but in general, I try to just give people their space. And that's the whole purpose. Another reason for this, the podcast, is just I try to allow people just to be themselves, because I don't know what it's like to be anyone else but me. So I like to learn from other people's experiences and their behaviors and whatnot. So I don't know. I try to just go through life by just trying not to judge, and hopefully just giving people their like this, giving them a platform to just kind of be themselves, and hopefully somebody gets something from it.
Yeah, and having that open mindset and that thirst for knowledge. Like, I used to feel like, because this is how I was brought up and the kind of work I did for a long time, you're supposed to know everything. Yeah. And what I've realized is the wisest person knows that they know very little compared to how much there is yet to learn.
Sure. No, very true.
I'm glad we get to learn together.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. What is it? How did you obtain this way of thinking? Because I mean, you've had your own experiences in life, and you were at a point in your life where you didn't think like this. So, what was the big turnaround?
Yeah, it's kind of cliche, but they say people change from inspiration or desperation. Mine was desperation. So, I was a big time planner and I thought I had everything under control and I was an overachiever and all this stuff. And, my marriage just got so bad. And my ex-husband, he just got really volatile. The Friday before the due date of my first son, he came home and had lost a job. The only job he had ever had. And, he snapped a little bit. And then from there, he just was this long string of losing jobs. And, with every bit of it, there became more anger and more, hostility and yelling. And I tried my best. But the universe is trying to teach me, no, you actually can't control everything and you can't plan for everything. And, so then it got pretty scary. And my oldest, he was 7 at the time, said, "Mommy, can you get me a new daddy?" And I had been sticking it out for a long time, thinking I had to do it for the kids. Like it's cliche also. Like, I'm here to tell you, don't stay in a bad marriage that can't be improved for your children, because you're actually doing your children harm and you are teaching them not the way to role model in a relationship. And then the children think it's about them and not about you anyway, because that's how children are. They're natural narcissists. So anything that's good is about them. Anything that's bad is about them. Yeah. But then I was just like, okay, when he came home drunk one night and jumped on top of me and was going to hit me, I was like, this is crazy. When did I show up in an after school special? I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but back before there was all the streaming and everything, there was like some dramatic movie after school that you would watch on, I don't know, A&E or something.
Yes.
And that's when, I was just like, holy cow. Never did I think I would get divorced. And it was really tough. And, I ended up getting a security system, not because I live in a bad neighborhood, but because of what he would say, like he was hiding in the house and all this stuff. But then I look on him with compassion. He had a terrible childhood, but at the time it was really tough. And my girlfriend introduced me to yoga. I'm like, I don't want to do yoga. There's no endorphins. It's kind of boring. I've only done it once. I was a spinner and a runner and all the adrenaline things. And I went, Timothy, and it's a hot power vinyasa type of yoga. It was the most difficult thing I had ever done in the most beautiful way. And then I just kept going. And I kept going. And then it's cliche, but they say, what happens on your mat starts to happen off your mat. You go stronger. You push your edge. You breathe, right? You connect to your mind, body, and spirit. And then from yoga, I found meditation, and then meditation turned into quantum physics and neuroscience. And, I just started to change my life and become more and more of myself. Yoga taught me that it's not selfish to put your self-health first. It's not selfish to get to know yourself, right? It's not selfish to breathe and make time for yourself. And so that's where my journey of self-love and learning about who the heck I was. And I started to become more of my authentic self and making decisions, not because of what I thought somebody else thought I should do, like I had my whole life. What did I want to do? What was my purpose? And that was my turning point.
Yeah, no, very well said. So I was just having this conversation with a coworker of mine. And so I started this job where I started, it's called I'm an employment specialist, and I help people with disabilities find jobs. And most people would say it's the perfect job for me because, you want to help people. And of course you hate the fact that there's so many unemployed disabled people and so on. And partially, yes. But I'm also not a person that likes to sit at a desk. I like to move. I want to go out and I want to be able to touch the people. I want to be able to do more. And then at the same time, the company kind of allowed a year to go by before they hired me. So the department kind of died. And I bring all this up because I had this conversation with a coworker who's like, man, I don't want to be doing this job. Now, he's a person who's been there longer than me, and I thought he really loved what he did. He like builds ramps and stuff for people with disabilities and things. And he's like, I don't really like. He's like, I get enjoyment of the end result, being able to help somebody and make their life a little more accessible, but I don't get enjoyment of all the other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, man, because I don't really care about, I care about the interactions I have with what we call our consumers, but I don't, all the other stuff, I'm like, yuck. Like, I just don't care about all the emailing and all the other things. Like, I just want to help people. And so, like, I always knew my purpose was to help people. I never knew how, and I still don't know how entirely, but I know that I'm getting closer to find it because I want to just do what I want to do and want to help people. That's all I really want to do. And I'm trying to figure out exactly how I do that. That's also beneficial and financial, because unfortunately money has to be included in that. Now I do like my job. I don't love it. And I know it's not something that I'm going to be doing for a long period of time, but I do know that there's some sort of medium with like what I do with the podcast and social media with what I do at my other job. And there's some sort of, there's a medium to that. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I just want to be able to like wake up every morning and go, oh my God, can't wait to go to work. Oh my God, I'm doing what I want to do, because I don't value money like that. I do okay financially, but I don't value it. And I value the friendships I have. I value the advocacy, and I value just living, because I nearly died as a kid and have a suicide attempt. So like I value life more than most, and I'm trying to, I don't want to waste any more days. I'm trying to move. I'm trying to do. And so that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now, is just trying to do as much, because I have the mindset and the willpower and just like, just the conviction. It's like, let's go.
I love that. And I applaud you for being committed to it and being passionate about it. Like I joined my job that I was in before, and I thought I was going to be there for 2 years, and it took me 25 years. I thought, I'll figure out my purpose or what I want to do in 2 years. I'll work different industries and this and that. But then it was always this fear of the unknown that kept me.
Yeah.
So the things that you talked about, like, could I make enough money? Could I support my family? All the things that were programmed into my mind as a child, not to hurt me, but to help me, right? Like from my parents' perspective, they just wanted to help me. They wanted me to be financially responsible and safe and never to have to want and all the things. But then those things became like, oh, well, I'm not sure if I can do that. And so I lived through this fear of the unknown and this false sense of control. And it wasn't until I found hypnosis, right, that I could even understand that. Like that I even got to the root cause. And through hypnotherapy, what I realized, like, and hypnotherapy is not like what you think about on stage, like, oh, quack like a duck or bark like a dog. The type of hypnotherapy that we do at LimitlessYou is, it's like a subconscious safari. And I'm your subconscious safari guide. And we go back and we figure out, why do you have the beliefs that you have? And the beliefs that are limiting, what was the cause of them? What truth did you create in your mind that actually is just a story that you made up a long time ago as a little kid to survive? And it isn't applicable anymore, and it's not the truth anymore. And so we just have to like upgrade. You have to recode that programming, right, to what you want, so that you can start taking action and rewrite your life and embody the life that you want. And I'm passionate about doing that now, not because like it makes me a bunch of money. No, actually, it's like half of what I used to make. But I'm doing it because it freed me, and I want to help as many people as possible free themselves, so that you can live your own purpose as your authentic self, right? That you're not worried. Like, if you are true to your intentions and you are thoughtful, Like, you have more reason to do exactly what you're saying, Timothy. You have more reason to fear of wasting your time in your life than you have fear of failure or death.
Right. No, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
by not taking action.
no, yeah. We spend so much time just being afraid of the unknown. It's crazy how much I constantly get in my own way. Like, no matter what people have done to me in my life, I am my biggest barrier because I constantly, yeah, and part of it is because of what has happened to me, for sure. I can't downplay that, but I am the one that constantly puts on the brakes and goes, I don't know. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Just go. No, because this could happen. And it's like, and there's a lot of times, like, what could happen, I don't know, let's say, like, oh my God, you could, lose your job. It's like, okay, yeah, that wouldn't be great. But it's not like you're going to, like, unless death is involved or the death of somebody, for the most part, it's like, go for it. I mean, there's some things within reason, but in general, it's like, just go for it. You don't have to, it's like, even if like you see a pretty girl and you go to ask her out, you're like, the worst case scenario, she's going to say no. And I mean, she could say something rude or something, but I guess it could hurt your self-esteem, but at the end of the day, it's like, that's pretty much all it's probably going to happen. But we build it up like, oh God. Well, what if she says no? And it's like, yeah. Like, I always look at it like I talked about earlier about the tonality. Like, I always talk about a dream and like how when we explain a dream to somebody, it's like, it's kind of like how my anxiety was recently, where it's like, you have this dream and you're like, man, I had this big argument with my mom and she yelled at me and, she said this and this and that. And somebody goes, well, that sucks, but that doesn't sound like it's that scary. And it's like, no, but it's the tone of it. It's the feel of it. And so like when you have these like build up little conversations with yourself where you talk yourself out of things, it's just somehow the tone of it just feels so raw and that doesn't feel right, and it just, you push yourself away from being able to enjoy yourself. Like, I always look at my sister.
Yeah.
My sister and I, at an early age, I'm 6 years older than her. She was like, when she was young, she always said yes to everything, and I said no to everything because I was petrified of a lot. Now, it benefited me because I never did drugs and I didn't drink and I didn't get in much trouble. Whereas my sister, because of saying yes, she did. But at the same time, my sister got to date more. She got to experience more friends, and she got out a lot more, whereas I didn't. So there's pros and cons to both. And like I said, even to this day, like, I look at a lot of the opportunities that I could have had. And again, I know we can't hold on to too much because you're spending too much time going backwards. But there are a lot of times, just because we're having this conversation now, there's a lot of times where I go, man, I could have done a lot more even in my teenage and adult year, or my 20s even, where I'm like, man, I could have done so much more because I just said no because I was petrified. So I'm trying to say yes more, where even if it's like being complimentary of somebody. Like the other day, I went up to the bus driver and I told him we talk every so often, but we don't know each other like that. But he's always so respectful and nice to everybody. And I told him, like, I'm going to give you a compliment today. Like, I appreciate that you're so nice to everybody. It doesn't matter how old they are or what they look like or their race. Like, I appreciate that you're just kind to everybody. And you can tell, like, it really made him happy that he got a compliment that day. Because, he's a bus driver. How many compliments does he get on a daily basis?
Yeah.
But like, whereas, there was a part of me that was like, oh, that'd be stupid. Don't say that. And it's like, nah, I'm just going to say it. And
Good.
Yeah, so I just quickly, just like, before I could really like put it through a filter, I just went, nah, and just spit it out. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a little trick that I use, whether it's thinking about the past or the present or the future. One of my teachers taught it to me. It's when you're thinking about either thinking a thought or doing something, ask yourself, is it good to have done? Would it be good to have done and possible to do? Right. And it has to be if it's not, the answer is not yes to both of those, it's not worth your energy. Right? So in your example, is worrying about the past and wishing like you could have changed the past and said yes more. Is that possible to do? No, can't change the past.
No.
Now, with a bus driver, would it be good to have done to pay somebody a compliment and possible to do? Yes, they both passed, so you do it, right? And so anytime you get caught in like this thought spiral, just ask yourself, am I spending energy on something that's even possible to do or good to have done? Yeah. And you can catch yourself a little bit. And if one of the things I created, I said on our website, unlocklimitlessyou.com/resources, I created this thing called the limiting belief lie detector. And so if you're like, how do I know if I have limiting beliefs, or how do I find out that like it's really protecting me? Your subconscious mind, any problem, any source of suffering you have, like I said before, your subconscious mind thinks is a solution to something it perceives is worse. Right?
Right.
So that initial hesitation of you complimenting the bus driver, your subconscious mind that was trying to stop you was probably like, you're going to get made fun of. Or you're, whatever the story is that it was telling it, it thinks there's something worse. And so if you're wondering, well, is that the case or that not the case? If you go download that limiting belief lie detector, you can I provide an example for myself and also my partner, Brad, of like what some of our limiting beliefs have been. And then you can run your stuff through it, and just see. That will also kind of help you get to the root of, why don't I do the things that I want to do or do the things that I know that are good for me, right? Like for me, for some reason, I think I figured it out, but I still go to Starbucks a little too much, But what I figured it out is like, it's my mind's belief, like this is a silly example, but that the caffeine will support me and the sugar will love me, just like my grandma used to love me with cookies. You know what I mean? Yeah. So anytime I'm feeling like alone or tired, or I have to do it all on my own as a single mom of 2 teenage boys, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go get, now it's pumpkin spice latte. But that also, just like drugs, right? Like sugar's an addiction. Binge watching shows is an addiction. Overworking is an addiction. Like we do a bunch of things, either socially acceptable or not, legal or not, to distract us from feeling our feelings. But those feelings, that's where the information is. We got to pull them closer and then run them through that limiting belief lie detector. We're like, oh, is this really true? Do I really need to waste all my energy on this? Because my goal is that everybody can start putting all of their energy into what they want to happen versus what they don't want to happen. Because unless you're in physical danger, like true physical danger, if it's not putting your energy into what you want to do, like you were saying, Timothy, like just start doing, you're probably wasting your energy like I did for so many years.
Yeah, you waste a lot of time just having nonsensical conversations with yourself, and then you lose in the battles. I mean, I always say I always have these little fights with my inner demons, and I guess I win the ultimate war as of now because I'm still alive, but I've lost a bunch of little battles because I've given in and not pursued certain things, or didn't, because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself, and it's all about can you, and is there certain things you can do to mitigate your feelings towards yourself. If you can just kind of do something to where you can go, you know what, when I lost my job, my other job, when I got fired, I was upset that I lost my job, and there was a part of me that's like, hey man, why did you go all out and fight and push back and all that? But then as everything kind of came to fruition and time passed and I healed, it was like, you know what, like you did that for a reason, because you were fighting for other people, you were fighting for yourself. Could you have changed some words here and there? Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, what was your reasoning behind it? Why'd you do it? And you did it for the right reasons, and look what has happened since. And and now you go into a job where someone wants you to fight for others. So you needed to go from that to that, and you just like I also thought when I lost that job, a part of me, like whether it's God or whoever, intervened and took the job from me because I kept making too many excuses that if I couldn't find another job or no one would hire me because of my disability and yada, 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 to the point where it was like, all right, this job is just, you won't leave it. So I'm going to take it from you. I'm going to remove you from the situation. And then we're going to show you what's on the other side here. And,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, okay, that place existed. I didn't know that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So I had all
you've heard it probably before, right? But it's hard to realize that you can believe everything happens for you instead of to you.
Yeah.
And so just like you said, that happened for you. You could have just stayed in a depression and gotten all out of sorts and never found another job again, right? And thought it happened to you. But instead you're like, oh, this happened for me. And just with that vibrational energy that's higher, you attracted something better into your life.
Yeah, for sure. No, and that's some of the things that 4 months where I was laid off, it was very instrumental because I really changed a lot and really did a lot of introspective thinking. And when that job came, I had this little intuition, this little thought, this tingle that was like, hey, you're going to find something. And I had nothing to base that on. And then I found it.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay. And I still don't even think what I found is even like the holy grail of what I wanted to find. But it's something that gave me hope for the next thing. And
it's just building your story.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And this is how I can take some experiences from here and then move to the next thing and so on and so on. And you start to see how it's all connected. And then you don't resent the last place because you're like, yeah, it wasn't the best experience. I spent 9.5 years there and I got fired after all the work I put in. And you're like, yeah, but you needed to go through that. You needed to, because before I even went there, I wasn't much of a leader. I didn't want to advocate for people until I was forced to. Until I was compared to anybody who the only similarities we had was that we had the same disability. It's like, oh, you all have visual impairment, so you're all the same. And it's like, wait, I'm slowly trying to find myself here as a person. How am I just like that person over there? I'm TJ. I'm a different person. They're like, no, you're the same. It's like, okay, well, I don't like that. And then little by little, right, the inner fighter in me came out, and it was like, okay. And so regardless of, it wasn't all bad there either, but I needed that place to kind of open up and unleash the fighter to where then I could become the advocate. And then I can really, and therapy also helped too, to where really to look at myself introspectively and open up and just, because when I first started doing this, I started telling my story from the beginning, and it was like, oh God, I'm reliving it, and it sucked. And now I can say all these things unabashedly and not really worry about if someone judges me, because it's like, hey man, this is a non-judgment zone. So it's like, and if someone judges me, they judge me, whatever. But I'd rather put myself out there because it's the one real way I know how to help people.
I love it. Yeah, once you, it's like a switch that gets flipped in your head. Once you start to see how, even the toughest times, afterwards, that's where sometimes the greatest growth happens. For me, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry about your divorce. I'm like, no, it's a congratulations.
Yeah.
Without that, I would have never switched my path. I probably would just be even, I'd be, working unhealthy hours and spending less time with my children and less time on my mind, body, spirit and whatever. So congratulations. It didn't feel like it in the midst of it, but now that I start to see how you can grow, and I went with that E=MC², right? Compassion and curiosity. Ooh, why is this doesn't feel so great, but why is this happening to me? Or why are these emotions that don't feel so great? What's happening? Where's this coming from?
Yeah.
And then that's where you get to play detective and you figure it out, and you don't wallow and spiral in the emotions. You think about, okay, what's good to have done and possible to do? It's good to have done, figured out what's going on in my subconscious mind, it wouldn't be good to have done to get stuck in there, right?
Yeah.
So you do what you need to do, you grow, and you move on. It's amazing. Once you practice, you get better and better and better. And you might still have triggers, things that bother you or set you off, but you're going to stay in that contemplation process shorter and shorter amounts of time because you're going to figure it out. You're going to get wiser. And rather than being stuck for years or months or days or even hours, you're going to be like, oh, that's what that thing is. I know that. One of the gentlemen I follow, Sadhguru, he says, you have your hand. He always says, you have a body and you have a mind, but you are not your body and you are not your mind. You have them, but that's not who you are, right?
Yeah.
So you don't slap yourself around with your hand, right? Like people then probably would judge you if you're walking around hitting yourself in the face with your hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, we think because people can't see it, we let our minds slap us around all day long.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And so it's taking back control of your mind, just like you have control of your hand, and saying, no more. You work for me, mind. You're not slapping me around anymore. Yeah. And it's not the mind's fault. The mind's doing what it was created to do. We just never had that human being 101, 201, 301 class to teach us how to use it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to do together moving forward. And everybody's going to have more and more joy and happiness in their lives.
Awesome. So where can people find you again? Your website?
Yeah, it's unlocklimitlessyou.com. So the name of our company is LimitlessYou because we believe you and everybody else is limitless.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is help you unlock the limitless you. So unlocklimitlessyou.com.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you want to chat further with me, there's a button on there. You can set up a free call. Ideally, you take our self-love quiz and you figure out what's going on. You'll get some insight just from that, whether you talk to me live or not. But if you go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz, you spend 5 minutes or less taking that quiz, you'll get some really insightful information. And then if you want some help thinking through it or figuring out how to unlock the limitless you in you, you just book a call with me and we'll work on it. Get started.
Well, I might reach out to you again anyway, just because I don't know. I'm kind of curious myself, to be honest.
I would love that.
Yeah, I'd love to pick your brain a little more because like I said, I feel like I've been, like I'm approaching or maybe I'm even knocking on the door, but I haven't opened it yet. So I'm trying to figure out how to get it open.
No, I'd love to help you do that because it's pretty amazing once you're free. You'll feel pretty light and things just start to flow. So you don't feel like you're, climbing uphill, pushing a boulder, but you're just kind of floating gently down a river and taking in all the sights as you go to your destination, to the limitless you and your purpose.
Yeah, I think I've always kind of felt like a zoo animal, like a caged animal that knows he shouldn't be where he's at. Like I know I'm like, okay, this is not right. And not entirely because I know I'm generally like I'm safe and I know I'm relatively I'm in a place where I need to be, but I also know that like there's a part of me that just feels like I'm just living a life, but I'm not living it to the fullest, and I'm not living how I would like to live, partially but not entirely.
Yeah. I would love to help you get there.
All right, well, we'll talk more about it, but I appreciate you very much for coming on. You're very delightful, and please let's keep in touch, be friends, support each other, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Everybody have a good night.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, I'm getting out of here. I gotta go to bowling, throw a ball. Hopefully it's a better night than last week. Bowling's so fucking frustrating. That and just with my eyes, I never know, like they're just never in sync. My arm and my eye. I wish I knew somebody who was visually impaired who could really show me exactly how to bowl properly, because I'm just off by a little bit, and if I could just get the mechanic right, if I can just keep this like repetitious type of movement, I would actually be pretty good. I know that for sure. Oh, it makes me so mad because I know I'm close to being good, and I I don't know if I can be consistently good because of, I'm not trying to be negative, it's just because of the vision and whatnot. So anyway, guys, I'm getting out of here. I gotta go, but I appreciate you guys. Mr. Bullet is here, sleeping on the couch. Let me see if he'll purr. Mr. Bullet, would you like to speak to your people? No, you want to just be snuggly and adorable. Okay, sorry guys, you can't see him, but anyway, if you guys want to follow me on TikTok and Instagram, I do post a lot of other content on there. So yeah, I'm very active. Try to post it just about every day. So yeah, I'll see you guys there, and you can reach out if you want to be friends, or you just whatever you want to, just say hello, like, comment, whatever. But please share the podcast if you can, just because I'm trying to get it out can't speak, to as many people as possible. Just trying to do my job here. So, all right, guys, I will see you later next week, same time, same channel. Bye, guys.